let me play you something.
My gosh, I just finished recording a podcast with my friend, and I guess we'll call her colleague. She's a fellow coach, Ilza. I will tag her here because we just had the most amazing conversation. I can't wait for that to come out. And so now I'm just sitting here.
This was how excited Coach Paige Royal was after a conversation we had, and I agree with her. Indeed, several important components were in place to make it feel like a good and enriching conversation to us both. For example, we were clear about the main topic and that it will be a conversation rather than an interview. Most importantly, though, as I watched it through, what stood out was that we collaboratively demonstrated good listening skills, which allowed the conversation to go places we couldn't have imagined. See, often people think about what to say next and miss what the other person is actually trying to say, and people feel it instinctively. Our conversation was different, and that created a feeling of mutual respect. Also, neither of us wanted to dominate, but rather collaborate. If you are interested in relationship building and mastering communication skills, I think you'll enjoy this video. But if you want to dive deeper, I invite you to visit our website, shebecameceo.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. But now, without further ado, here is the recording.
Okay, so in terms of like what it's about community, what particularly about community is it?
It's a great question. And I was thinking what I am doing here with that podcast is I am building a community.
Yeah.
The community, in broad terms, so to say, consists of two parts of community members. So let's say one is the audience, the listeners, but the other one is speakers like you or people who pitch my podcast, because I receive a lot of emails and people pitch me. So for me, it's the building the community of people who gather around the same ideas. So that, I don't get a guest who tries to communicate something that is not quite in alignment with how I intend to create it.
Right.
So that's what I would like to clarify, what my intention is, what kind of community I would like to build.
Yeah, okay. And I think like we can talk about like how authenticity is like so key to building a community, especially as like the leader. It's really important to like be in integrity and tell the truth as much as possible, but then also be who we are legitimately without hiding facets of ourselves, right? Because yeah, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does. It absolutely does. I like how you said it. Try to be as authentic as possible, because I think that it's challenging for everybody, even for the best speaker and even for the best communicator, first of all, to be authentic, like completely 100% authentic, because we always have in mind who we are talking to, and we are kind of adjusting ourselves to that audience. And I think in that process of adjustment, we somewhat, compromise our authenticity. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, because I curse like a trucker sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, right? And
Yeah.
so getting, like if I get onto someone's podcast or something like that, and a swear word comes out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I got to edit that." Like
Mhm.
that's editing me. That's editing my
Right.
authenticity, right? But also we have to we have to be like, okay, do I really need to do that? And is that a boundary for them? And does that feel okay for me?
Yeah.
Right? Like as a presenter, right? It's like those little nuances, right? It's like what's off the table? Like, can I swear? Can I talk about sex? Can I talk about religion? Can I talk about politics? Can I talk like all those hot topics, right? And it's just like, is that allowed on the podcast?
Yeah.
Like if that's, yeah, if
Yeah,
that's something that,
I love that you brought this up because, this is also about collaboration, and
yeah.
collaboration is that community building.
Mhm.
Because it's actually, if you want to be like 100% authentic, then you're basically going to end up being an outsider completely. You need to collaborate and, maybe not curse on certain podcasts where it's, not appropriate, and be more authentic in that way elsewhere in your own space, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Ooh, this is a juicy topic. Let's just be real and let's just be like how we just have
Mhm.
or how for me it's just about having a conversation.
And you know what? I think that just by having that conversation,
Mhm.
we would still bring value to somebody who is listening, because it's about modeling, how you listen, how you ask a question, how you clarify. So that maybe we hold space for each other in this conversation
Yeah.
and be curious about each other.
Yeah, and I mean even this can be it, it's just
Yeah.
like just having a conversation right now about our
Mhm.
intention about your community and how we both are coming across here
Yeah.
and filtering who we are,
Yeah.
but also respecting each other and each other's communities,
Mm, yeah.
you
But
know?
But you were the one who brought up the word community,
Oh yeah.
because you wrote to me after that interview, because
Yeah.
you are a returning guest. And after that conversation, a while after, like a short while after, you wrote to me and you said that you want to reconnect. And I wanted to clarify again, it's about the clarity. I wanted to clarify because you thought that initially you said that you were asking me if I need an accountancy partner, or how
Accountability. Yeah.
accountability
Yeah.
partner. And I wanted to clarify. And then you said, oh, your question made me clarify it for myself, that what I am longing for is community, right?
Yeah, like community for me, I mean, obviously, like we're both building communities with our audiences, right? And the particular topics that we talk on. But then there's also community in our personal lives,
Mm,
that's super important to have outside of business. And so when I originally messaged you, it was like about business, and I thought this is a way that we could connect because I just, we've known each other for like a long time, right?
yeah.
Not connected regularly, but after our conversation, I just felt really heard and really seen. And it was really, really nice because it had been a while. And I have been living, in Colombia for 5 months now. I'm in Ecuador. And I knew when I reached out to you, you've had that place where you've had the language barrier, right? And it's lonely.
Yeah.
Like it can be very lonely when you don't fluently speak the language and when you're like, well, I'll speak for myself, but I really think you're like this too. It's like surface level conversations don't really do it for me. Like, it's like I will go into the depths of the ocean as deep as someone will let me go because that's
Mhm.
my jam, right? Um, and so I was like, Ilza will get it. Like she'll get what I'm experiencing, but I brought the sort of mask of it being business. And then when you ask the question, I was like, what's this? I was like, what's this really about? And it's like, you're really freaking lonely. You're lonely and you want someone in your life that you can talk to who's real and authentic as well, and who has been in a similar situation. And I think that I'm getting shivers right now because that's
Mm,
community. It's
yes.
like that's what we're doing here. We're just like sometimes a few steps ahead Sometimes we're far ahead. Sometimes we're only one step ahead. The idea is that the people who kind of follow us are like looking to us, like we were talking before, as a model. Like we're
Mhm.
modeling something for people and how we do life in whatever area, right? And whatever it is that we're saying. So, yeah, I love this conversation.
I do too. And I heard several things in what you said, and I will probably not hit on all of them. But the one thing that you talked about was loneliness, which I have also noticed and experienced, but I also noticed in other people who are reaching out to me also because of their loneliness. But just today, I read a post by a Latvian woman who is in Ireland. And she's a professor at one of Dublin's university. I think it's called the University of Ireland or something. But she is highly educated. She has a PhD degree in arts, but she has a couple of master's degrees on something. And in Latvia, even though she is a patriot, and she has created summer camps for children every summer, and she has tried to do a lot of things and to be integrated and everything. But she felt that she didn't belong and she didn't feel appreciated. And maybe that's where you are talking about being ahead. And in Ireland, in that Dublin University, she feels appreciated. She feels that she can contribute, that she feels that she's more helpful than she was when she worked at one of the colleges in Latvia. And I imagine that she somewhat feels also lonely. And for her, I studied languages, but she just learned English, along the way of her development. And what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you can feel lonely in the place that is very familiar to you,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
yes, you can.
and then you need to build a new community, almost like intentionally, and to
Mhm.
say no to old relationships that probably, no longer serve you.
hmm that is one of the things about community that I think doesn't get talked about a lot too, just sort of segueing off of this,
Mm.
is that we grow out of communities.
Yeah,
And sometimes we get into communities thinking that we want to belong in that community. I know I had personally had this
yeah,
experience and realizing like, oh wow, this has taken me so far from who I am
yeah,
legitimately, authentically as a person. And it's great because it's good to have those experiences as well, because it allows you to get to know who you are, what you want in your life, what you stand for, right? So I think, you know, because I remember being in a community and then after leaving it going, oh my, like, wow, like, and doing things to belong,
yeah,
you know, but not really wanting, but not wanting to be ostracized either,
yeah,
not. And so you really like with community, whether it's like online community or in your personal life or whatever, you really have to check in with yourself, and it's like, is this aligned with who I truly, truly am in the inside? And if it's not, you must walk and you must do it very, very quickly because take you, it can take you on a path and it can turn your life upside down and inside out. And in my experience, make you very, very sick
hmm
physically until you get back onto the path. And I think that that's just, whatever someone believes in kind of thing, just being redirected
yeah,
essentially. But I think, it's important to have those experiences so that because it's the only way we learn. It's like that action thing. If we're not taking action, then we're not learning anything about ourselves, right?
Mm.
So we have to keep putting our foot in front of the other and trying things until we find the thing. It's kind of like, sorry, I'm talking a lot. It's kind of like when I used to be into health, like being a cycling coach. And I used to tell people, I'm like, you just have to find the exercise that you love. Like you love it so much that it's not, there's no reason for you not to do it because you love it that much? So it's like that's with communities too. It's just find a place where you really feel like you can be yourself, you
Yeah.
know? And yeah.
And be ready to that at one point you might no longer feel that you are in the right place. And you might still hold it close to your heart and
Mm.
have warm feelings for it, but it would probably feel just, I don't know, maybe even too cozy, you know,
Mm. Mhm.
because I don't know, I am growth oriented. I need to grow, or I
Like,
will feel there will be discomfort. I will not feel happy. I will not feel in the right place if I'm not stretched a little bit. And there's that borderline where, my nervous system has suffered a lot, so I have to really modify the stress to stretch myself to have that positive stress, but also to be careful to not overwhelm myself, and because then paralysis and then analysis and paralysis can set in. But you talked about the community. What kind of community are you building?
yeah, it's just authenticity and judgment-free zone. It's like to be as judgment-free. And that's one of the things that I really, get. It's one of the things that comes up in feedback, when I've worked with clients. The word judgment comes in the sense that they never felt judged. They never like that is like it was a safe space for them to be fully themselves. And I think that's just so important, because we both are coaches and we work in that it's transformation, right? And you have to be able to hold space for someone to move through um difficult situations, and to give them a safe space to voice,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about hot topics,
Yeah.
like, yeah, and there's so much shame. There can be so much shame around things, right?
Mhm.
And it's like you have to be able to talk about it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
because we hide a lot.
Yeah.
People hide tons.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
shame is practically always the result of trauma. And often
Hmm.
people don't even realize that they have been through a trauma, or maybe they still haven't resolved the trauma. They are still living in, out of the trauma consequences, because, people, when they think about trauma, they think only about acute trauma. People who haven't, um, thought about those things a lot. But there's that chronic trauma where you constantly feel undervalued or less than the others. And then there's also that vicarious trauma where you get traumatized because someone close to you is experiencing trauma, or just, adversity or something. And just by being compassion, you can experience trauma. So, and interestingly, then the result is shame. And then
Yeah.
you, as a victim, are ashamed of being a victim,
Mm.
and you don't talk about those things.
Mm.
And yeah, that's something that I think would be like, I feel even like sort of a mission to communicate this to people so that they have more compassion for themselves and to love themselves more. Yeah.
Like I always say, I have a big thing like, people's pasts are really like clouding
Mhm.
their current situation, but they don't realize it. because they think that they've talked to a counselor, they talked to a therapist, or they've worked with coaches before, right? That it just depends on how deep that therapist, counselor, coach can go to really remove it at the unconscious level. Otherwise, you're making decisions through like a filter, right? And I always say that, look, it's because people hold so much shame and so much fear and sadness and anger towards these things. And it's like, and then they blame themselves sometimes somehow,
Yeah.
like this is, and I'm like, no, like, we have limiting emotions, we have limiting beliefs, all stemming from past experiences, but that's not your fault.
Yeah.
Oh, those things are not anyone's fault. The
Mm.
thing is about it is that it's 100% other, like people who are suffering, right? Responsibility to do something about it.
Yeah.
That's where responsibility comes in. That's where the onus is on you, the listener, if you struggle, right? That's where the onus is on you, on that person to do something about it. I don't like to like point the finger, and but whatever happened in the past is not, that's not yours.
Mm.
Mm, mm-mm,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's and not to blame anything or anybody, it's just human experience,
Hmm.
because people who we think maybe hurt us, it's
Hmm.
because of so many other things. That's number one. And the other thing is sometimes we focus attention on that one person where actually there have been a number of circumstances and triggers and aspects that actually summed as trauma, but we notice only that one person, usually the closest one, and then we blame them.
True. Yeah.
Whereas actually, it's a bunch of other things collectively, all together, things and situations and genes and
Oh,
all kinds
yeah.
of things.
Sort of the
Yeah,
playground,
yeah, but we
like,
see just yeah, we just see that one person who used
yeah,
to be our, I don't know, lover or
yeah,
whoever, brother or yeah, parent, and that's their fault.
yeah. Yeah, and everybody has their own stuff,
Mm.
including us,
Yeah,
their own
absolutely.
selves. And it's like all of the great thing about it all is it's all learned.
Yeah.
So it means that we can unlearn it,
Unlearn.
right? But we
Mm.
can't make other people unlearn things. We cannot. I remember when my mom and I, this was like such a profound breakthrough for me. My mom and I we just locked heads. I'm a strong woman, she's a strong woman, kind of thing. And I remember finding the work that it is that I do. And I remember doing the work on specifically on family. And I got into that and I was just like, until she apologizes for this and until she, all this stuff, she doesn't get to be in my life, like hody toady, right? And I know
Mm.
a lot of people have family stuff, right? And
Mhm.
uh, and then when I actually worked on this myself, my mom and I have an amazing relationship now,
Mm.
and she hasn't done a thing. She is the same
Wow.
person. She's never seen a coach. She's never seen a therapist. She doesn't believe in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now we have a great relationship because it was me who forgave myself and forgave her, and that's a very brave thing to do.
Mhm.
It's a very big thing to do. And to be able to let that go and then be able to
Yeah.
and it's not the case for everybody. Some of us, our family or whatever, it's not meant to be
Yeah.
and that's okay too. But still, we have to come to sense of peace for our own selves, you know?
Yeah.
And I know we're kind of getting off the community thing, but these things, these are the things that actually help us, you know,
Mm,
um, be in the right, because there's communities that are all about just talking about the problem,
yeah,
being
yeah,
in, like they're all over the place. Those
yeah.
are communities to be in, peeps.
Um, Yeah, but yeah, I could also go down the rabbit hole talking about this that we just started, but I know that we have a common theme in our community building, so to say, or and we are also building a friendship between each other intentionally, which is
Yeah.
so fun. I'm so happy about that. But I'll just mention that theme, which is money, which is also a topic that people have shame around very, very often. Just yesterday, I received an email as a result of me sending out email trying to re-engage my community that I kind of like abandoned when I was offline. So to say, for a couple of years, going resolving my own issues. And somebody wrote to me back saying something that I hope that you're making a lot of money, but I am out. And so basically, person said that they will unsubscribe because I asked, do you still want to be in my community? And I'm planning to develop in this direction. And I briefly described it was brain health direction. And somehow the response was about the money. And I was thinking, well, I like clarity, and I'm thankful for that person to write to me like that. But the thing is, I'm not making a ton of money just yet. I am building the community. And I am
Yeah.
building the community not to specifically to earn money, but for the sake of community, because I also benefit from having that community. I just like to hear back from people. I like to see the needs, and I know that the right people who will resonate with what I say will become my clients as well. But that's not why I am doing this podcast thing, because I don't earn anything. It's actually an expense for me to have this
Mhm.
podcast going. It's really about the community, but money is an important aspect because you mentioned also speed. And if we want to have greater impact, that is possible really when we have a healthy cash flow. And you are talking about money also in your new program that you are building. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? How do
God,
you see
I'm so
that?
excited.
Or you don't
No,
like yeah,
I
just
don't have to. I know because we're
yeah.
both working with money, but I feel like truly, like, if you had asked me 6 years ago, or I don't know if yeah, probably 6 years ago, 8 years ago, or something like that, I would have been like, can't talk about that. We're the same, we're in the same thing, but we attract different people because we're different people, you
Yeah.
know? And so, but yeah, money was just always, I was trying to figure out how to niche, because the process is the exact same with all my clients. But just recognize that, like, if I try to be everything to everyone,
Yeah.
no one hears me. No one's hearing me, right? And so then I kind of looked back at my past, and I know we talked about money on the original podcast, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And that we talked on. And I remember well, speaking of communities, I'm in this marketing thing, and when I showed up and I showed my how to get unstuck, not with money, but just in general. And the leader, like the coach, was just he lit my stuff up, and I was just like, "Rrr," so it was like that edge, how we're saying we don't want to be too cozy in the community because we actually need to grow, right?
Yeah.
And then it was after that I realized I got to Ecuador, and I was just like, I went back through my whole life because it's usually something that we've really struggled with.
Mhm.
That is the thing that we're meant to help people with. And I mean, I got my first credit card when I was a teenager, and it was just a roller coaster from then on. And then, you get into you quit your job as a corporate securities paralegal for 20 years. You quit that and you get into business for yourself, and no one's telling you about how that whole scene gets exacerbated through selling, through pricing, through all those things, right? So this is why I've created this, because I had the money problems before. Like, I had my brother bail me out, all the things, right? Really struggled.
Mhm.
But I was making money. But there was
Mhm.
just never, it was just always enough or never quite enough to like enjoy my life, even though I was making the same as the other person beside me and they were saving.
Mhm.
It's so interesting. And then when I got into business for myself, that's when things just went haywire. And I realized, wow. And it really stopped me from, it was really stopping me from quitting my job.
Mhm.
Because, and just doing the things that I wanted in my life. And, it was just then that I realized, okay, I need to create, something that is helpful. And we all do it in a different way. Like,
Yeah.
there's books, there's tons of coaches, there's programs, all those kinds
Yeah.
of things. But what I saw that was missing for me was dealing with the emotional aspect of it,
Mm.
and so that's what that's my
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. And you just explained it that we are both very different because you just mentioned it's the emotional aspect. And a couple of days ago or so, I was just working in the kitchen and listening to one of the podcasts, and there was a lawyer talking about a divorce lawyer, I think he was, and he was talking about that money matters is one of the biggest things why people end up in his office, and it's not people who struggle with money seemingly, but he has rich clients. He was from Silicon Valley, I think, and he said he has had billionaires and they feel the same insecurity as people who just barely have minimum salary. Emotionally they might feel the same intensity emotionally when it comes to money. Yeah.
'Cause it's like you're scared because you don't have it, but then you're scared when you do have it that you'll lose it,
That you
because you
lose
have a
it.
lot at stake, right? You have a lot, like you're living different, completely different lifestyles, and then it's everything in between. So I will say, like, everyone has money stuff. Everyone's got a
Yeah.
money story. And this is the thing about money is that people don't talk about it because it's like this thing that,
Yeah.
there's not everybody, but a lot of people don't talk about it.
Yeah. And it's one more thing I will just
Yeah.
mention also, if they have a lot of money, the insecurity is that maybe people only want their money.
Yeah. 100%.
That's a big fear, and people just get very defensive, and they don't trust anybody, very skeptical, close up, and basically can't feel because they block, and they can't love because they suspect that everybody else wants only their money.
Mhm. And
And
then on the other, oh, sorry, go
that
ahead.
and they are difficult to love because of that, because they
Mhm.
just don't allow to be close to them. um, yeah.
I've had the flip side where the man is comfortable and he's the provider, right? And the woman is uncomfortable because she's relying on, she doesn't have her own money, you know?
Hmm.
And so then there's fears that come up with that as well, on autonomy, on like all sorts of, so money is so complex. And then you take money and you really look at money and really look at how it's impacting
Yeah.
every single area of someone's life, no matter if they have it or they don't.
Yeah.
Hell,
And when you unblock people and allow them to allow themselves to look at the money, then, how I work is with the language, because people don't know terms, how to talk about the money. And when you start learning terms, you start understanding concepts, how everything works, and you see structures, how everything is related to everything, how you can plan, and also how you can, let's say, create a business plan and communicate what
I
you
love
want to
that you do
achieve.
this.
What you want to achieve, and how you can grow a team and have people who support you, because before you can communicate that, you can do it, because everything starts with the language, with the spoken word, which starts, of course, in your head with thought, but then you need to verbalize it. So yeah, that's the route that I have chosen, the clarity using words.
And me, yeah, I just love it because I think both of them are both of what we do is required. Like the emotion can really stop
Oh yeah.
words,
Yeah.
right? The emotions like the fear, the shame, the deep sadness and disappointment, and the anger, the frustration, like, for me it was like, I'm 40 something and I still don't have my shit. Sorry.
No,
My
that's fine.
stuff together, like what the heck? And like it got in the way. Like I remember probably like 4 or 5 years ago when I sat there, remember I was sitting in this apartment and I was just like, what man is going to want a woman with this going, like this
Oh,
financial stuff going on, but this is the thing, like
Oh
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
the
yeah.
thing that I wasn't saying that to anybody because
Mhm.
like I didn't want people to know that I was thinking that way. You
Yeah.
know, I was thinking that way.
Hmm.
I was just like, and so I didn't even bother. And
Yeah.
like that held me back from that whole area of my life. Like this is money is so I just did I it's so funny that I'm only realizing it now, like not now, but like I created the money mindset program when I was living in that place and I was having those thoughts. And I created the program and I thought, who in the heck am I to be delivering this? And then I started delivering it and had success with people. And then I came up against another my biggest fear happened. And I thought to myself, who am I to be helping people with this? You know, but the thing that I forgot to look at was how I moved through that
Mm.
emotionally,
Mhm.
so grounded.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning, but like there was only maybe a couple of days where I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then I was like, no, got this, and I really attribute that because I've just always been an emotional, like, emotions have run high. I have so much, if you're into astrology, so much water in my chart, you know, and it's just like, yeah, so emotions run up and down and whatever. And that was my biggest thing was I had to get in charge of those, get into the driver's seat of those, right?
But you are not alone. I think that all the smartest people, the scientists that I have been listening to on numerous podcasts, their passion and their life mission, if you will, comes from some deep personal experience. I have heard so many doctors talking about their relatives, like their mothers or their dads or their wives, their health problems, and how they started focusing on something and then did a study, research, and got PhD or something because of that personal problem or their own weight. Then they figured out that thing and now they're helping others. So that is what we are doing here, obviously.
No question, not to cut you, like, why language do you mind me asking that? Like for you, like because language is everywhere, right? From the beginning, you went to university for that, right? So like,
Yeah.
what is it about
How
that
far do you want to do you want me to go back?
like that's your why, right? Like I had the emotional roller coaster from money from when I was a teenager and got my first credit card. I mean, it started because in the 1980s there was a huge recession, right? My
Mhm.
parents almost lost everything. Um, so that's where it started. But for you, it's like, yes, money, but then there's the emotion, or sorry, the language. What's that? Yeah, because I don't know what that's about for you.
So really, really going very far back, why I started studying English was because I was in the Soviet Union and I wanted to get out of the Soviet Union. And we didn't really hear spoken English anywhere, but I had seen a Russian movie about it was a love story between air hostess and a pilot. And the way she got the job on an airplane was that there was the captain and who was a friend of her father, and they were having like a party in some wooded area, like in Russia, something, by fireplace or not fireplace, bonfire, and she had failed an exam to get in. She wanted to be an actress actually in an acting school, and for them it was like a crazy exam, like something that was not easy to get in, and she needed a job. And her father asked his friend, who was that captain, "Do you have anything for my daughter?" And the captain turned to her and said, "Do you speak English?" And she
Mm.
responded saying, "A little bit." And just saying a little bit, by knowing how to say a little bit, she got a job on his plane and started flying. And they eventually got in some natural calamity where there was volcanoes or some earthquake and something. And she was in love with that pilot, and they also had a drama between them. But my reasoning was, okay, if I learn English, I will get on a plane, I will fly somewhere, and if there's a situation, I will get off the plane, and I will just get to live in a free world. I wanted to get out of the Soviet Union. So that's how I independently, as a child, as a 12-year-old, started learning English. And without hearing the real language, I really could only learn structures and grammar and just piece by piece together. So I could read books, I could write, I knew grammar quite well, but my ability to understand the spoken language wasn't great when I first heard English language. So I think it also creates some kind of block. So I became a listener. I was
Mm.
listening for nuances and stuff like that. I became a listener. Of course, Latvia that time at that time Latvia had already regained its freedom, and so I didn't have to flee. But anyway, I became a listener and I studied. I was thinking, okay, I don't have to run away, but I still want to have this connection. And I already know the language I got in the college. There was also entrance exam was tough, and so I wanted to have that connection. But in the meantime, I also started working at school. And I had already had experience of traveling and being more, like an international person than most teachers. So they gave me senior students. And at that time, when Latvia started developing and capitalism set in, my students were really interested in business. And I was given more lessons, like specialized lessons, and they said, do whatever you want as long as you teach them also the basics so that, they get to colleges. And I created business English and also all kinds of like interesting stuff for people. And my students wanted to get into really good schools, business schools, law schools, and all that. And they asked really, really challenging questions. And that triggered me to go and get an MBA degree because sometimes I couldn't always answer all those questions. I had to research. And I also, translated on the side as side gigs. And I got more and more financial texts and stuff like that, and I didn't want to make errors. But those paid really well. So that also was a motivation to learn financial language, to understand numbers. It was because of the language, so they got better jobs.
Oh
And
my
when I started studying business, I got into it and it really became really interesting to me. So this is how it evolved. There was a different motivation. I wanted to leave, so I studied English. And then I wanted to get better translation jobs or give better answers to my students, so I studied business. And then I got interested into business. So that how it evolved.
I just, oh, I don't know. I just find like this is the thing. I love people's stories and like how did you get here? You know, like and how why is this a thing? And I just thanks for
Yeah,
sharing.
and when I got here, I noticed I was thinking I had been translating really complicated legal texts for more than a decade. Yeah, and often I couldn't understand local dialect well, but also culturally, because people say, "Oh, go by I-40 or something," and I'm like, "What is I-40?" And I was like Mismo. There's that comedian that I really, really like. He's Finnish and he talks about American attraction to abbreviations. And I felt the same way.
Yeah,
When I came here, people talk in abbreviations and other people
accurate.
like, I thought I knew English, but it turns out I don't. Because it's just cultural. It's very cultural. So the language
And
is not just,
industry.
yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. Industry. So that's my story.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, wow, all that stemming from a movie,
Yeah,
but also being like really clamped down on,
exactly.
like it was like this is my way out.
Yeah,
Like I've got to learn English. And
yeah,
not having access to English speakers, but reading and writing. And I don't know, Ilza, that is like so inspirational. I think just that alone, you know, truly, like because I didn't live that, like I'm Canadian. So it's like it's pretty safe over, like, and so yeah, so I just find that fascinating. Yeah, thanks for sharing because I didn't know. Yeah.
You're very welcome. But I wanted to say this is a coaching aspect also how, and it comes to what you're talking about the past experiences, including childhood experiences, where a little triggering event or maybe being oppressed, feeling less than or something, and then hearing something, how you interpret it differs for everybody. And this is, how we can hear something in the childhood, and that determines the development of our lives further on.
I can use myself as an example. My brother and I had the exact same experience. My sister was a bit younger. Well, actually, she wasn't born when this in the 19, yeah, she was born in 82. But my brother and I have the exact same experience, but we all have the exact same childhood. And I was not debt averse, my brother debt averse. And so we've just led completely same experience, but we interpreted it completely differently. And it gave us two completely different life trajectories just on money alone. Right. And then the other thing is that not a ton, but I do have clients who will say, I had a really good childhood. Like I can't, I really don't know what could have been in there, you
Yeah.
know? But the thing is like we don't know until we start really, because when do people ever get the chance to talk about
Yeah.
what's because you know we're in a situation and we don't like that situation, right? It's when people come to us,
Yes.
right? And it's like, but you got there somehow, and it started way before you were even consciously aware, you
Yeah.
know? And so you can have the best childhood in the world, but you can still make something mean something to be limiting on how you go and make decisions in your life, even if it doesn't feel super traumatic. So I think that's important, you know,
Yeah, it
to
is important. And I like what our previous colleague Mara said, that I use the same saying, what got you here will not get you there. And usually you need help, because then you can go get faster where you want to
oh,
be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I used to say to myself, I'm smart. I never ever thought that I was stupid. And I know there's people who think that they're stupid, right?
Mm.
I've worked with people who thought that. I've never thought that. But I also knew, like, I'm this smart and I can't get myself out of this. Like, like I actually have to have someone else help me, because
Yeah.
if I knew how to get myself out of this, I would have already,
Yeah.
you know, like,
And
you know,
many times we can, but many times we can, but it might take a long time, you know?
that's right.
Yeah.
There's the long way, or there's the
Quick.
fast forward VHS,
Accelerated.
you know?
Oh, Paige, it was such fun to talk to you, and I already know that you are going to be back, and we will stay in touch, of course, because we are intentionally building our relationship as female friends.
Thank you so much for having me again and for this conversation. I think we just really jive off each
I,
other and really respect. I think it's the respect, it's
yes.
the respect for each other. And yeah, so just thank you for having me. I absolutely loved this conversation. So
And I will leave all your information in the show notes, or if it's on YouTube in that space under the video.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, I think you'll also like my conversation with Coach Marley Gilbert. I'll provide the link to it around this video to help you find it. And once more, I invite you to visit shebecameceo.com to subscribe to my newsletter, which I send weekly to my community members.